everyone, and welcome. My name is Danny Wilson, and welcome to Unity 101, or What the Heck is Unity, and what can I do with it? So we're going to go over an agenda for kind of what we're going to talk about and what we're going to get out of the presentation. So we want to learn what is Unity, what's it like to make a simple game using Unity, how can I share it with the world, and where should I go to get started after this? One of the things that's not a goal that we're going to get out of this is we're not going to become a proficient Unity developer, or really even a beginning Unity developer. There's just so much to learn with Unity, and it's more than you can get out of it in an hour presentation, or even 50 hours or 100 hours. So this is just going to be a presentation to get you started with Unity, learn what you can do with it, and learn where to go with it. So what the heck is Unity? Well, Unity is a multi-purpose platform for creating 3D and 2D interactive experiences. And you can kind of see a screenshot of what the Unity game development platform looks like here. This is kind of everything you're going to do with your game is going to be done through this Unity editor here. This is kind of your one-stop shop for making a game. When I say multi-purpose, this is kind of some of the things that Unity handles for you. It can handle graphics, sounds, music, user interface, controller input, platform deployment, physics, has its own built-in physics engine, scripting, coding, and many more. So Unity is kind of just your one-stop shop for developing games. And so what have people done with Unity? Well, here's an example of a game that's come out in the last year here. And it's a first-person shooter that the time stops when you stop. So it's called Super Hot. So here's a little preview of what that's like. Super Hot. And so that's just one of the examples of something that's been done with Unity. So, who all is using Unity? How many people are really using it in the industry? There's a lot of studios, both large and small, that have been making games and experiences for all sorts of different platforms. So, Blizzard has made Hearthstone, which is a collectible card game for PC and for mobile devices as well. Kerbal Space Program, which is a spaceship simulator, has been created for PC. Monument Valley is a puzzle game for mobile devices, and there's been a number of games and experiences made for virtual reality now. For the Samsung Gear, the Oculus Rift, and the Vive, all can be you can make all sorts of VR projects using the built-in virtual reality functionality in Unity. So, why use Unity? Why not use one of the other game development engines out there? Well, I started with Unity myself because Unity has a reputation for being easy to learn while still being powerful. So it's easy to learn. Most of the scripting is done in, well, C# is the default kind of scripting language. And so anyone that's been doing development in C# already, you'll fit right in. You can also use JavaScript, and I think there's a couple other choices out there. Unity has some awesome documentation and tutorials, both on their own website and video tutorials all around the web. It's powerful. As you can see, there have been a number of big studios that have been using it. It's industry standard for game development. It has this thing called the Asset Store, and it's a place where you can go download additional assets for your game, whether that be sound files, art assets, even complete sample projects and games. It's just a great tool so they're saving you time in game development. And it's free. It's free for personal use, unless you're making, I think it's over 100,000 a year. But it's a good one to get started with. Some of the alternatives out there, one of the most popular ones is the Unreal Engine. That one is generally seen as a little bit more powerful than Unity, both in terms of, largely in terms of its graphics capabilities, but it's a little bit more difficult to get started with. And there's more and more options that are available every day. Game Maker, Amazon Lumberyard just recently came out, and then just the other week, CryEngine went free as well. So there's plenty of options out there. So alright, now you've seen kind of gotten a taste of Unity. Let's see what we can do with it. Let's see what we're going to make today. We're actually going to make a little 3D version of a Brick Breaker game. I'll bring that up over here. And if I press play. So this is kind of what we're making here. We got our ball, a game with a ball and a paddle, and the goal of the game is to try to break all the bricks on the screen here, and if a ball goes into the water, we lose a life, and we keep going until we either lose all 3 of our lives or all the bricks get broken. So, and we're going to go through and we're going to start building that from scratch here today. So, let's find out how we're going to do that. Well, first step is we're going to get Unity, get that up and running. We're going to get familiar with the interface so we have some idea of what's going on. We're going to make some of our assets for the game. We're going to go and get things moving with scripts. We're going to add some extra features into our game to spice it up a little bit. We're going to go and put everything together, get all of our scripts working with all of our assets. We're going to go get some extra assets from the asset store. And we're going to build our application for the web and share it with the world. So the first step in doing this is we're going to get Unity. So you could just go to Unity's site, and you can hit up this link, and you just download the free personal edition of Unity. It's going to ask you to make a free account as well. And then you'd go ahead and make a new project with that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So the first time you open up Unity, you're going to get something that looks like this. So we got our new project. We're going to name our project, tell it where to put it, and then select a kind of default package to go with. You can always switch between these, but we're going to go with a 3D game. So I'm just going to call this. There we go. Create our project. Unity puts our project together. We open up and we see this. So now we're going to go on to our next step here. And we're going to get familiar with the interface. We're going to learn about the different parts of the interface and what they're all for. So, back to the interface. And this is kind of what you're going to see to start with. This big area in the middle here is what's called like your viewport or your scene view. This is where all your objects are located in your Unity game. So you see you got a couple things here so far. It just starts you off with the camera and starts you off with this little directional light here. Anything else you put into your game, you're going to be able to see in the scene view here. It's divided into 2 sections, the scene view and the game view. The game view is a preview of what your game's going to look like when you run it. On the left-hand side, we've got our object hierarchy. This is a list of all the objects in our scene. So right now, we've only got the camera and the light. As we add more, we'll see more come up in here. Along the bottom, we've got our project view. We have our project view, and this is where you can see all the files that are associated with your game. It's kind of like your Solution Explorer, Visual Studio, or your File Explorer if you're in a Sublime. Any files that exist in your game in this assets folder are going to show up down here. As you can see, we don't have any assets right now. These objects right here don't really exist as files in our game, and we'll kind of see how that comes into play later. Our console, this is where you're going to see all your nasty error messages pop up. It's the same thing as you see in Google Chrome, Developer Console, or Visual Studio Console. And you can also log messages out to here to help you work through creating and debugging your games. Along the right hand side is the object inspector. This is where you can see any details about your objects. So if I click on one, you can see camera, it's got this transform, this camera, a few other things. This light is a transform, and the light. So that's where I could edit the light settings. Alright, and that's about it for the interface there. We'll explain more as we start using it. If we go back to this. So our next step is going to just be to start making our assets. We're going to start making our objects. So we're going to go in here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our pedal. And I'm going to open up a different copy of my project here. One that's got the game. I have all of my completed files in this folder here, and I'll be using those as we go through this in the interest of time. So, first thing we're going to make a pedal. So to do that, we're going to go 3D, this game object menu, 3D object cube. This is how you can start making objects in your game. You can see we've got all these properties that showed up on our right. Really, the only one we're going to be concerned with right now is this transform, which controls its position and space, rotation, scale. We'll get to the rest of these guys a little bit later on. So we're going to go ahead and name this up here, name it pedal. And then we're going to come over here, and we're going to make this a little bit bigger. We're going to set it to be 3 units wide here. And we're also going to set up our view, so we're kind of viewing this from the side. So if I do this, and a couple more times, there. So now we've got, move things in the X direction, like that, or the Y direction like this. And we're going to move this back down. Oops. We're going to move this down about 9.5 units. There we go. If I zoom out a little bit, we kind of see what our game looks like right now. You can see I can move it around with this little tool over here. It's this transform tool. Just kind of lets me drag objects around. I could also do rotations, and this lets me change the size of the objects there, but we're just mostly stick with this guy. So now that we've got our paddle, we're going to start wanting to make walls around the sides of our game space. So to do that, I want to make a 3D object cube, and it made it inside of the paddle there, so we're just going to move it off to the side. And this thing we're going to want to be extra tall, so 10, maybe 20 units tall, and we kind of move it off to the side a bit more. And we're also going to tilt it a little bit. So you can see I'm tilting it a little bit inwards here, so that way it's a little bit more interesting. The ball is bouncing off the walls there. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and take a completed version of this. Say our artist has already provided us with a complete model of this. And so we're going to take that, and we're just going to drag. So this is our completed version of it. We're going to go ahead and drag this into our game. Unity will go ahead and plop it down there for us. And I'm going to go ahead and delete the one I was working on. There we go. And we're just going to move this guy up. You see me using this little gear and reset here. That's just moving this position, setting its position back to 0, 0, 0, just kind of as a shortcut. So now if we kind of readjust our view, you can see that we've got our gate, our little gate around here, and our pedal. So next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to start making some bricks. So we'll do that again, 3D object, cube, and we've got a little cube again. Set this back to 0, 0, 0, our origin, and we're going to move this up here somewhere, and we're going to set this to be probably about 2 units wide, and we're going to name it brick. So that's pretty much it for that. Then we're just going to need to make a bunch of these. And so before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into what's called a prefab, which is short for prefabricated object. And what that is good for is that's good for objects that we want to have a lot of copies of, or objects that we want to be able to create later on through script. And since we're going to be making a lot of these copies of the same brick, I want to turn it into a prefab. So I'm going to create a folder for it just to keep organized here. I'm going to put prefabs. I'm going to go ahead and drag my gate in there. And to make something into a prefab, all I have to do is click on it over here, drag it down here, and it turns it into a prefab. So now I can start making copies of this. So I want to just go click on my brick here and then just do Control D, that duplicates it, and move it down. And then I'll make a couple more, duplicate, like this. And so the nice thing about having a prefab is that if I want to edit, say I want to make the bricks a little bit wider, I can just edit the prefab and I'll apply it to all the bricks. So if I can go over here and click on my prefab and edit the scale, so you can see if I move the scale, it changes all the bricks at the same time. So it's really nice when you have a lot of copies of the same thing. So now I want to make a few more bricks. Select all of them, Control D, duplicate it, do some here, and do duplicate all these again. Control D. There we go. So now we've got a bunch of bricks and our pedal and a gate. So next thing is our ball. So I'm going to make another 3D object. This one's going to be a sphere. So Unity is great for making a bunch of simple 3D objects. More complicated ones you can export from other systems. Put that over here, move this down there. There we go. And we'll name that guy ball. And then we're going to make some water on the bottom. So our water is just going to be kind of a big 3D cube, just to have some, it'll have some depth to it that way. So kind of move it down here, down a little bit farther, and then we're just make it really big. So we're going to have 50, 20, 20. So now you can see it's kind of this big 3D cube. It's got 50 units wide, 20 tall, and 20 deep. So there we go. We've kind of got something that's starting to look like our game that we started with here. But some of it looks kind of bland. There's a lot of just big white blobs here. We want to try to get some more color, make it look a little more interesting. So to do that, we make what's called materials. Materials are just kind of textures or that you can apply to things to give them some color. So I'm going to create a folder for that. Just keep ourselves organized. And I'm going to go down here. If I right click, I do create material. That lets me make new materials. So we're going to start off with this red one. So we're going to make our paddle and our ball red. And you see our gate's already red. So I'm going to make this, and really the only thing we care about here is this albedo. Kind of determines the color of the material. So if you click on it, you get color picker, move over to red. There we go. So you can see it looks red now. And I just want to apply this to our objects. So the easiest way to do that is just click and drag and then drop it onto our objects. And then Unity knows that, hey, you must be trying to add a material to this thing. And so it just sets it up there for us. And I'm going to rename my water. I missed that. See that? Alright, so we've got those. Let's give our bricks some color. Make those green. Let's make a new material. Green. I'll do this. And we're going to select all of our bricks. And we're going to go ahead and make those green. Let's drag that. Another place you can drag things instead of dragging onto the objects here is you can drag them over here where it says add component. And this is the same thing as dragging on the object. Unity will just figure out that you're trying to add these things to all of them. So we're going to make one more material. And we're going to make one for the water. Water, we're going to make blue. And we're going to want to make the water kind of transparent looking. So to do that, we want to change this rendering mode from opaque to transparent. And we're going to want to change the water's alpha value, which basically determines how visible it is. If we make it 0, it's completely invisible, and it goes all the way up to completely visible. So we'll go somewhere in between. There we go. And if I drop it onto the water, it'll be kind of transparent looking in the game there. So we're going to do one more thing before I move on. We're going to put all of our bricks into kind of an object to keep them together. Right now they're just kind of taking up a lot of space in this hierarchy. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create empty, or if I do this, game object create empty, it just makes a blank object. It doesn't really do anything, it just kind of exists in the scene. I'll put that as 0, 0, 0, and we're going to call this brick holder. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our bricks, select them all, and then we're going to drop them into the brick holder. So now I can collapse it, and you can see it looks a lot nicer. And this will help us later on as well. And so now if we play our game, we're going to see that, well, we're a little zoomed in. Our camera's kind of in the middle of our game here, so we want to kind of move the camera back out, because our camera is what determines what you see in the game view here. And you can see the little preview down there. So we're going to take our camera, we're going to move it back towards us, probably about -20. And now if we see our preview, that looks pretty good. If we look at our game view, that's looking pretty good. And if we these buttons let us test our game. Play will start it up. And you can see, well, we don't have a lot much that's going on right now because we don't have any scripts. It's just a bunch of 3D objects right now. So our next step is going to be get things moving. We're going to start making some scripts for this. So I'm going to show you, so now we've gone through these steps, we're on to getting things moving using scripts. We're going to make some scripts, and I'm going to tell you about the options for debugging and scripting in Unity. Let's go back to our game here. So we're going to go ahead and make ourselves another folder for scripts, just to keep ourselves organized. We want it there, and I'm going to cheat a bit here. Instead of writing all the scripts with you guys, I'm going to use the ones I've already written, and we'll just kind of talk through them. So I'm going to take my script for my pedal, I'm going to drag it into that folder, and we're going to open this up. By default, it's going to open up in Visual Studio. When you install Unity, it comes as Unity 5. It comes pre-installed with a version of Visual Studio, and it'll use that by default for scripting and debugging your game. There are other options. MonoDevelop is kind of the one that was used before that, and it's more lightweight software for debugging your application. And I think that you can use a variety of other ones as well, but Visual Studio is the new default. So if we start looking at our script, see that it's named paddle, and it's got this update method in here. This update method is kind of built into Unity's framework. If Unity sees a script with an update method, it knows that to call that method for every frame that the game is running. So since we want to check to see when the player is moving, we want to check to see every frame if they're trying to move left or right. So we're going to go get the position of our paddle, and then we're going to go change this horizontal. We're going to change this X position, or its horizontal position. So we get this curved position. We're going to look at if the player is pressing a horizontal input button, which in Unity by default is the left and right arrow keys, or the A and D keys, and we're going to multiply it by the speed, which is just a variable we set up there. And we're basically going to move it, and we're going to make sure this clamp is going to make sure it stays within our left and right boundaries of our game. And then we're going to set the position. So now, if we want the script to work with our object, we have to tell it. Right now, it's just the script is just a file in Unity. It's not being used on anything, and nothing's referencing it. So we want to attach it to our object. So we just take our script, and after selecting our paddle, we can just drag it over and add component, and it adds our script. So now this paddle has the script, and now when the game's running, Unity's going to find that script, and it's going to run any functions that need to be run on it while it's going. So in this case, it's going to run our update method. So now if we test this, we should be able to move the paddle with the arrow keys. Looking at that, we can, and it stays inside of our boundaries there. So there we go, we got our first script made and working in Unity here. The other thing you'll notice is that you can see this pedal speed is available in the editor here, and that's because I set it to a public variable in our code. So this is good if you have multiple people working on the project. If you have like a designer that maybe doesn't know as much about scripting, but is kind of responsible for balancing or tuning the game, he might be able to easily, you can set these up so he's able to easily change variables in the script without having to really know any scripting. So if he wants to increase this pedal speed and thinks, oh, maybe this feels a little bit better, he can do that. And it just makes it a lot easier to work with some of the scripts. We'll set that back. So now we've got our pedal script. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get our ball moving. So right now, our ball, in order to get it to work with the physics engine, we're going to have to add something called a rigid body. So if I go to add component and I start typing in rigid body, let's add that. So this is what allows an object to work with Unity's physics engine. It needs to have this rigid body component on it. This rigid body object. And you see it gives it a mass, drag, angular drag. We don't really care about those. You see it starts with use gravity is yes, so now this object should use gravity. So if we test this out, we'll see our ball falls down onto the paddle. If I move the paddle, our ball just keeps going. So we don't want it to act like that. We want the ball to kind of bounce up off the sides of our game space here. So I'm going to turn use gravity off, and I'm also going to turn this kinematic option on. I'll kind of get into this a little bit more later, but basically this means if this is set on, we're going to control its position with script rather than let Unity's physics engine handle it. And the reason we're going to do that is that we want the ball to move with the paddle before we start the game. So we want the paddle to interact with the physics engine as well, because the ball is going to bounce off the paddle. So we want to add a rigid body. And we're going to turn off gravity for that, and is kinetic, we're going to set this to true for that, because we're moving it with the arrow keys, not with the physics engine. And last thing is we're going to take this ball and we're going to make it a child of paddle. And so if I want to do that, it's similar to just when I made this brick holder. I can just drag the ball into the paddle. And you can see that now the ball is kind of indented down here onto the paddle. And so now whenever the paddle moves, the ball is going to move with it. The same thing would be with this brick holder. If this ever moved, like this, it moves all the bricks with it. And so now if I press play, we'll see that, hey, our ball's moving with the paddle. Ball doesn't fall down. So we're ready to get the ball moving around our game space. So to do that, we're going to grab our ball script, which I've already created. And we're going to look at that. You can see kind of the important part in here is we're checking on every frame in this update method. We're going to see if we press the fire 1 button and if basically the ball hasn't started moving yet. This ball in play is going to be false. So we're going to start to say the ball isn't in play yet, and so the ball's not in play, and you press the fire 1, which is left click by default. We're going to free the ball from its parent, so it won't be attached to the paddle anymore. We're going to set the ball play to true. We're going to turn off the isKinematic flag. You can access those within the script as well as within the editor. So now it'll move with the physics engine. And then we're going to add some force to it, and this will get the ball bouncing around. And that force is going to be we're going to set that to be public so we can edit it in the editor. So now all I have to do is attach that ball script to my ball. Boop. And now if I start the game, I should be able to left click and launch my ball. So we've still got plenty of work. Ball doesn't really bouncing around how we want it to, and it's not destroying any of our bricks. So we're going to move on to that next. To get the ball to bounce, well, we're going to create a bouncy physics material. So there's a couple different kinds of materials in Unity. There's the colored ones, as you saw before, and there's what's called physics materials, or physic material, they call it for short. And this is what allows you to control the physical properties of an object. So like friction if we look on our new material, it's going to let you control fiction and bounciness. So we're going to want to set, since we're going to want the ball to bounce off of everything, we don't want it to have any friction. We want to set it to be basically as bouncy as possible, which is 1. And so we're just going to take that physics material and we're going to apply it to pretty much everything. So I'm going to select all my bricks and I'm going to drag it over. I'm going to apply it to this material there. So those will be bouncy. Our paddle is going to want to be bouncy. Our ball is going to want that. And then all of our walls on our gate here. So we're going to select all those and we're going to do that here as well. So now they all have that bouncy material. So now if I press play, ball should start bouncing a lot more. Awesome. So next thing, we're done kind of with our initial set of scripts here. So we've gotten Unity, made some of our assets, and started to get things moving with scripts. So our next thing is we're going to add some extras here. Unity can do a lot of different extras to make your game a little bit more alive. You can add some interface, particle effects, animations, sounds, tons more. But we're just going to focus on a simple particle effect here, kind of spice things up a little bit. So we're going to go back to our game. And if you wanted to make like a new particle effect, which is like an explosion or like snow or anything that's got a bunch of little particles, little dots, you just go to Game Object Particle System, and you can see by default it makes this little white spray here of particles there. And you can edit all sorts of stuff with this in Unity. You can change the shape of the spray, changing it to a cone to a sphere or hemisphere. You can change how many particles are coming out, the emission rate. So if I say I want tons of particles, I can do that. And this Unity just allows you to easily create these particle systems for use in your game. I'm going to take one that's I've already made here, in the interest of time, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we've got our brick particle system here, so we're going to have a little particle explosion whenever one of these bricks blows up. So if I drag that in here, you can see it's these bunch of these little purple squares that show up there. So that's what's going to show up whenever time we hit one of our bricks. Alright, so that's kind of our extra feature that we've got in here. So our next step is just going to be putting everything together. We're going to add a few more scripts and we're going to tune up some things and get everything working. So we still don't really have much of a game. Our bricks don't break and we don't have any lives or anything like that. So our next step is kind of be getting all that sorted out. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple more prefabs. So you remember before I made this brick prefab so I can make a bunch of copies of it. We're going to make our ball and paddle here. We're going to turn that into a prefab. And we're going to turn our brick holder into a prefab. And the reason we're doing this is so we can recreate new copies of them later. When we lose a life, we're going to destroy our little paddle here, and we're going to want to recreate it. And so in order to do that, we need to make it as a prefabricated object so we can just keep making more of them. So in order to do that, all I have to do is click on this, drag it down here, automatically turns into a prefab, and it turns it blue over here, so you can see that that's happened. And the same thing with our brick holder. So there, all of our bricks and our paddle are now prefabs. So we're going to want a script now to kind of manage our game state, kind of manage how many lives we have, how many bricks we left, so stuff like that. So I've got a script for that already. And if we open that up, this is our game manager. I'm just going to kind of briefly go over some of this in the interest of time, but this is kind of what's going to manage our game. So when we set up the game, we're going to create a new copy of our paddle, and then a copy of our bricks. Get it started. And then every time we lose a life, we're going to, every time we lose a life, we're going to destroy our paddle, like I said before. We're going to subtract one of our lives, destroy our paddle, and then we're going to set up a new copy of our paddle. And this invoke lets us do it with a delay, so it'll happen after whatever our reset delay is, which is 1 second. And we're going to check to see if we lost. So check to see if we lost, or if the game is over. We win if there's no bricks left, so we want to check to see if there's no bricks left. If we do, we could show some text here for you won, or have a little particle effect or explosion or what have we. But we're just going to do a nice little slow-mo effect here, and we're going to restart the game. And if we lose, when we have, if we don't have any lives left, we lose, and so we're going to do this cool slow-mo effect again, and we're going to invoke our reset function with after 1 second delay. So if we go look at this reset function, we'll have it right here, reset. And so when we reset it, we're going to want to reset our time back to normal instead of using this quarter speed. I'm going to reload our level. And so really the only other thing that's important in here is this destroy brick. So every time a brick is destroyed, we're going to want to let this guy know that we have one less brick, and we're going to see if we won the game. So that's our game manager. And right now it doesn't exist in the scene yet, it's just a script. And so we're going to want to make an empty object. And we'll just call this game manager. Oops. If I can spell it. There we go. And we'll drag our script onto this guy. We'll reset it. So there we go. Now the script will run when the game starts, or it'll run whenever the function's called. So next we're gonna we'll go ahead and create the script for our water here. So when the ball hits the water, we want to take away one of our lives. So we're gonna copy over that script. I'm gonna go ahead and copy over my other script here. Move that back into the scripts folder. Alright. So we've got our, what I called a dead zone here. Basically this is the zone where you'll lose a life if it goes into. And all this is it's going to look to see when something has entered it, and it's going to tell the game manager that you lost a life. And this is an on-trigger enter function. I'll explain what that is in a little more detail. So this water has this collider. These colliders are what tells Unity when objects hit it. And so by default it's just a collision. And those collisions are great for when you want to have objects actually bounce off each other or run into each other. But we're just wanting to know when the ball hits the water. We don't want it to actually bounce off the water. So we're going to set it to a trigger collider, and that's just going to when it's set to a trigger collider, when something hits it, it's going to call this function. It's just Unity just knows to call this whenever something enters it, and it's going to on-trigger enter. So now that's set up, we'll drag our dead zone onto our water. So that'll happen. And then we're also going to want to set up our bricks. So our bricks, we've got a script for that too. So this one, instead of on trigger enter, is an on collision enter. So this is going to be fired whenever something collides with it. So all these boxes have a collider by default. See this box collider? And we don't want to make this a trigger since we want the ball to actually bounce off of this and hit it. And so whenever the ball hits it, it's going to fire this function. It's going to create our nice little particle effect. It's going to destroy the brick. Right here, and it's going to let the game manager know that a brick was destroyed, and going to check to see if we won or not. So we're going to want to apply this brick script to all of our bricks. So we'll select them all, drop that over here, and we're also going to want to set up our particle effects. So we've got our little particle effect, we'll drag that in there. So now all of our bricks have our brick script and the particle effect. And since this is a prefab, I'm going to want to apply hit this apply button on our brick holder, and what that does is it applies the changes I made to this copy of the brick holder to the prefab. And so now if I made another copy of this, it would have all the changes that I had. It would have our particle system, and it would have our script. If I didn't do that, then if we tried to make more copies of it, they wouldn't have those changes because I didn't apply it to the prefab. So I think this one. I think all we've got left is to finish up putting our scripts together. So if we go into our game manager here, you can see that it's asking for, we set up to look for a couple more things. We needed to know about the bricks prefab that we've got, because it needs to be able to make another copy of this every time we restart the game or we run out of lives. We need to be able to reset this. And then our paddle, and the reason for that, so whenever we lose a life, we need to make another copy of that. So if I was to test this right now, we'd see a problem here. Is that, go ahead and start the game, and we've got, well, 2 copies of our ball and our paddle now floating around. The reason for that is our game manager is now the one taking care of creating these things when the game starts, and so we don't need copies of these in here anymore. We're gonna make them as soon as the game starts. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete them from our scene. So now when the game starts, our game manager is gonna set up the game. Oh, looks like it's not. Our game manager. Oh, that's because I dragged the wrong objects in here. I dragged the ones from the level instead of the one from the prefabs folder. So I'm going to drag those guys in here. Bricks prefab, our paddle prefab. So now if I start the game, there we go. And if I click the mouse button, we've got our working game now. We've got the bricks blowing up, our particle effects, and we've got our water there. If the ball hits the water, we lose a life. There we are. So it's still a little bland looking. It works, but it'd be nice if it, we could spice it up a little bit more. So we're gonna do one more thing. Is we're gonna check out the asset store, and we're gonna go get some nice art for this game. So we're gonna go to the window menu, and we're gonna go down to asset store. The asset store will open up right within Unity here, and we can drag this out to make it a little bit bigger. Like this. And this is the Unity Asset Store, so this lets you download all sorts of additional stuff for your games, your projects. You can see you can download art here, you can download a bunch of props, you can download code set, you can download complete projects, you can get audio and music, all sorts of stuff, or even extensions for Unity to kind of add additional functionality to Unity. They're all pretty reasonably priced. But this is a great place to go if you want to quickly get some more stuff into your game without spending the time to do it yourself. So we're going to go get we're going to make our water look a little bit nicer. Right now, the transparent water is kind of nice, but it's a little bland still. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to open up some filters. We're going to do free only. And we're going to do water flow free. I think that. So this is a good one that I found earlier. See over here, it's just got some nice looking water for us. It moves, and so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say this looks pretty good. So we're gonna import this into our game. So all I have to do, import it, and I'll download it for us. And I actually already have it downloaded, so it knows that, and it's not gonna try to re-download it. But you can see there's some other stuff I could get in here that I chose not to include. So all I'd have to do is select what I want, hit import, and it's that easy. Just get your asset store files right in your game. So since I've already got it, I'm just going to go ahead and take our material that we got for our water, drag that into our materials folder. Instead of using our plain one, we're going to use the cool one from the asset store. Drag and drop that on there, hit play. You see we've got some nice moving water now, so this looks a lot nicer than what we had before. Here we go. So now we've got all of our assets for the game. I'm going to show you guys the asset store, kind of what you could do with that. Our next step is say, hey, we finished our game. Let's go share it with people. Let's go put it out somewhere where people can see it. So I'm going to go over the build, how to build a Unity game and what kind of options you have for building. So we go back to our game. And then I'm going to go to File, Build Settings. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to save our scene. And it's going to ask me to create a new scene. So we haven't actually saved the whole level yet. We've made a whole bunch of objects in it, but we haven't actually even saved it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to call it game. And that saves our scene or our level in Unity. So now that we've got that, we've got Build Settings. And this is our build menu. So first thing you're going to see here is you're going to see all these different platforms. These are kind of your built-in options for deploying. You can see also different consoles: Xbox One, PS4, Vita, Windows Store, WebGL, Android, iOS. Whole bunch of different options here, and they're all set up and ready to use basically. So we just have to choose what level we want to build. I want to build our game level. It's set up, so I'm going to hit Add Open Scenes. It's got our game scene in it. And we're going to go ahead and build it for the web here. Set our default to be web. And we're going to go ahead and hit Build and Run. It's going to ask where we want to save our build to, so we can use that build later and put it on our website. So I'm just going to go save it in here. We'll just select this folder for now. After you go to select a different folder, let's make a new one. Test build. And select that guy. And this will take a little bit to build it for the web, but once it's done, we'll have something play in our browser. So in the meantime, go over a few more things. Alright, now that you guys have seen what all you can do with Unity, here's where you can go to get started. So, video tutorials, that is a really great place to get started. That's how I started learning to use Unity, and it's just a wonderful resource for getting going with it. So, a few places you can go for that. Unity's own site actually has a number of good free video tutorials there, so you can just go to that URL there and you'll see what those look like. And then there are a couple of paid sites you can go to find video courses. So I'm currently going through a course on Udemy, and you can see the links listed there, and the specific course I'm going through listed there as well. And that course has been a very great way to get myself introduced into Unity and get going. And then there are tons of other free resources for videos and Unity tutorials around the web. YouTube's a good place to go, and if you guys look around, I'm sure you'll find a few more spots out there. So besides video tutorials, online documentation is great for after you kind of get started with Unity and you want to learn a little bit more about what you're doing with it. They have a manual online, and they've got a scripting API through Unity's own site. So if I go take a look at that here, you can see what that looks like. This is the scripting API for Unity, and this is the transform object that we were looking at earlier. So it kind of tells you a little description of the object. It's got some examples. It tells you about the variables and the functions you could do with that object. And the scripting API has been really great. It's a really good resource for learning more about what you're working with when you get started with scripting. And their manual is here along the top there, and the manual just provides more in-depth guides to specific features within Unity or specific functions within Unity. So besides the online documentation, ask someone. Unity's got a really great online community. They kind of have their own Stack Overflow at this answers.unity3d.com. You can go there and you can see a bunch of questions that have been asked and people posting answers to them. And then feel free to ask me. Feel free to post your questions in the comment section down below, or to send me a message there, and I'll try to help you with your questions too. Use the resources you've got. Alright, so the next thing we've got here would be questions. So if you guys have any questions for me about our goals that we covered today here, or anything in our agenda, feel free to post in the comment section below or send me a message, and I can help you get your questions answered. And you can see our Unity build is just about to finish up here. And it's opening up in our web browser. Let's finish off with this. Now I've gotten this incorrect header check error sometimes in Google Chrome, so I think it's a bug with something with the latest version of Chrome, or it could be some setting in our game somewhere, but I've had better luck with it in Firefox. So we'll go ahead and just open up in Firefox here, so we can get that to work. I'll put it up there. You see our splash screen. And there we go, we've got our game. It's playing in a web browser. So if we wanted to, we can go ahead and embed all of this in one of our websites and share it with everyone we know. So there's a whole bunch of, it's running a little slow here. There's a whole bunch of settings you can tweak to make things run a little faster. It's probably running in a debug build instead of a release build. So there's a lot of things you can tweak with that. So finally, talk about feedback in the future. So I'm looking for feedback on this. This is one of my first big presentations, and I'm still new to Unity myself, and I want to kind of improve my presentations as I go here. So talk to me, email me, whatever. I'm open to hear what you guys like, what you didn't like, what it needs improvement, any of that. Please let me know. Online, I set up a little like 4-question survey that you can fill out to help me improve, see what you liked and what you didn't like. So please fill that out after you've listened to this. It'd be really helpful for me. And also, it has a little question in there about whether you're interested in more lessons. I'm more than happy to do follow-up lessons on this, to kind of dive deeper into Unity and really get you started making your own stuff. Just let me know if you're interested. And then the code for this is out on my GitHub, so feel free to download that and work with that if you're trying to work with me with the presentation, or just get things started. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. And I also want to say that this tutorial was actually adapted from one of Unity's own video tutorials on their website, and I listed that here. And so that's a great place to go for getting started. So thank you all for coming, and if you have any more questions, just let me know. That is Unity 101, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next time.